Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Cowboys Overtime here on StarTelegram.com. I am Fort Worth Star Telegram columnist Mac Engel. He is Cowboys know-it-all, Mr. Nick Harris, who was at maybe one of the craziest NFL games we've seen in recent memory when the Dallas Cowboys upset a 10.5-point. Some sites even listed the Cowboys as an 11-point underdog against the Washington, whatever their names, and they pulled out one of the craziest wins I've ever seen. Nick, before we get into that game, a very important topic that we need to discuss, which is Thanksgiving Day meals, and specifically whether or not a potato is a dessert. Your predecessor, Mr. Clarence E. Hill Jr., and I had this debate last year. And I am of a mind now that Thanksgiving Day meal, and specifically traditional aspects to it, need to go in the garbage. Specifically, the idea that a potato can qualify as a dessert. Think about this. Is a potato a dessert?
No.
Thank you.
But a sweet potato
Nope.
could qualify.
No, see, that's the whole idea. If you're at a restaurant and they bring up, in the history of you going to restaurants, Nick, has a waiter ever wheeled out the dessert tray and shown a potato next to ice cream, creme brulee, chocolate cake, praline, whatever? Do you ever see a potato on there?
You know what you didn't mention? A pumpkin. They don't put a pumpkin next to those things either.
Pumpkin pie. I have seen pumpkin pie. It's a valid point. A pumpkin pie I have seen on dessert trays outside of the very narrow window that is Thanksgiving. What are your favorite Thanksgiving Day dishes, sir?
Oh, I'm just a foodie. My family makes great mac and cheese, so the mac and cheese is always ready to go. Green bean casserole, I think, very underrated at the end of the day. Oh, yeah, I know. You either love it or you hate it when it comes to green bean casserole. But deviled eggs, that's what I make. That's what I contribute to the table every Thanksgiving. So I love.
Do you have a special recipe?
No, not really. I'll put a little paprika on there. I maybe put a little bit too much sometimes, but it's the best day of the year in my opinion. I love to eat, and a holiday around food, that's going to sign me up 100 times out of 100.
What about the signature dish to a Thanksgiving meal? And I'm talking about turkey.
Yeah.
If you had to guess how many times a year, other than Thanksgiving, how many times in a calendar year do you eat turkey?
Oh, I am a turkey guy. I just had an unhealthy amount of turkey bacon this past weekend.
Wait, did you say turkey bacon?
Yeah, I'm a turkey bacon.
It doesn't count. That doesn't count. I'm talking about, no, don't trick it up and call it bacon. How many times have you had turkey?
Just straight turkey, like
straight turkey.
Yeah, probably 3 times in the year.
3,
maybe. Yeah.
See, this was my big complaint during COVID when we were changing everything up and everything was going to be all different now, even though we've totally regressed back to the way everything was. My contention, what we should do is take that opportunity to really change up Thanksgiving. See, I contend one of the reasons why the settlers got so mad at Native Americans during the first Thanksgiving is because the Native Americans gave them turkey. And the settlers were like, this is garbage. And then they took out their anger on them, and is one of the reasons why we eventually stole their land. I'm a we in that, as the ugly white man. So here we are centuries later, and I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, why are we continuing to do this to ourselves, where we center this magnificent meal around a bird that we would only eat 3 other days out of the year? So it was up to you. And you could put any dish as the main dish for a Thanksgiving Day meal, other than turkey, because we're not eating it any other day, much like cranberries. I don't know who's making money on cranberries the other 364 days out of the year. Ocean Spray's premiums, or pardon me, a return on Thanksgiving must be just obscene because it's selling 1 product a day for the rest of the year. Forget it. So what would be your signature meal, Nick, for Thanksgiving if it wasn't for this stupid tradition of eating this dry, awful bird?
It's unfortunate that they had that first Thanksgiving up in the Northeast, because had it been in Texas, we would have slapped some nice juicy brisket on that plate and let it roll. So But underrated number 2 that sometimes gets incorporated at my family Thanksgivings, wings. Throw some wings on the table too. They'll get eaten as well.
Are you making now? When you say wings, are you dressing them up? Are you making them hot wings and putting some salt?
Mango habanero. We'll do some mango habanero. We'll do some Cajun wings. Sometimes we'll just leave it plain and let somebody else, try to decide what they want to do with them. So yeah, it's up to the savior, I guess.
That's a good one. I think I'm in the place now where I really put a premium on a good steak.
Okay, Mac. To cut off about the turkey slander, deep fry it.
Tried it. Still a bird. It's still an ugly white bird. And I do throw in the color distinction. Normally, I'm one of those guys that, hey, I don't see color. You know what I mean? I always love that cliche. But I tried, Candy, to throw the turkey into a deep fryer. And typically, I think a deep fryer can make anything up to including a shoe pretty good. Put the right breading on it. Yeah, it's still turkey. I don't care what anybody says. It's still turkey. Okay. We have more. Well, I don't know if we're going to have anything more important to talk about other than that. But the Cowboys do walk away from our nation's capital with an amazing win, snapping their 5-game losing streak to win one of the craziest games I've ever seen. Nick, you were there. Tell us the story where you were in the chaotic final 2 to 3 minutes of that game that will go down in the books.
I am typically I am a guy who waits until the clock hits 0 before I go down, or unless the 2-minute warning is hit and the game is completely out of hand. You've seen it from me a few times at AT&T Stadium, especially given elevator situations. Now, being at the Washington Stadium, I was already thinking, I need to buy in some time because this is the worst stadium in the NFL. So I need to make sure I can get down to the locker room in time before that they've landed back in Dallas. That was kind of like my thought process around it. So as soon as Kavontae Turpin hit that spin move and scored on the kickoff return, I was out of there. My story was
over.
I texted in the Slack, hey, as long as nothing wild happens, this story should be ready to go. And that was the kiss of death, Mac. That was the kiss of death. I left, I went back down, and on my way to the locker room. Actually, I'll get to that later. We'll get to that point in a second. I get to the locker room, and I can just see a sliver through the tunnel. And as I'm looking through that sliver, I see the crowd just going absolutely bananas. Did they score a 10-point touchdown? Like, what happened, basically? And in the time of this will tell you how long it takes to get down to the field in Washington. From the time I went down and got to the locker room, they had already scored a field goal. They had kicked it back off to Dallas, and they had gone 3 and out. And then they had the 86-yard touchdown to Terry McLaurin right as I was walking up. And a security guard ran up the tunnel and was like, oh my God, they're going to win. I was like, what is going on? So I turned back on the game on my phone to Joe Davis and Greg Olson, and I look, and it's 27-26. And as soon as I hop on, I hear more cheering from the other side of the stadium, and then they missed the extra point. And it was a game that it was absolutely wild that I did not see the end of. But on my way to the locker room, I ran into Jay-Z, so that is a win. That is a win at the end of the day, and I will take it.
When you say you ran into Jay-Z, because for years I had gone, you had never been to that stadium before, and for viewers and listeners of this vodcast, Washington Stadium is the worst in the league. I can't think of one that's any closer now, especially now that Oakland has relocated to Las Vegas. Washington is the worst one, and for lots of different reasons, from a fan standpoint, certainly from a media standpoint. Not that anybody cares about that, but for years, that game has attracted some serious A-listers because of its proximity, obviously, to the nation's capital, New York City, Philadelphia. So when you bumped into Jay-Z, like, how literal are we talking? Like, oh my God, it's Jay-Z. Nick Harris, it's good to see you again. Here's my card. Call me. Right. Like, how much of a bump into was this?
Yeah, I went ahead and handed him my notebook. I told him that I'd been working on some things that might be useful for his next album whenever he gets around to it. He was like, hey, man, you need to release this on your own. So he gave it back to me. But No, in reality, I was walking through the tunnel and there was about 6 security guards, and I was just snapping a video. And as soon as I ended the video, like the last security guard at the very end, he was like, "Hey," and I was like, "Hey," and I kept walking.
Hey, you know who I am?
Yeah.
Those security guards drive me crazy.
Like, it's Hove. What are we talking about? I'm gonna take a video. Get out of here. This is a public setting.
Was it the guy? Was it the security type who wears the yellow jacket? And he's minimum wage guy, and he gets off on, "Hey, stand behind the line." Was it that guy?
I don't think it was. He had like a whole like security group with him. They had like some company name on the back of their shirts.
Oh, okay. So this is like a Blackwater, Black Ops type deal, right?
It was security for hire. They were trying to make a good impression on Mr. Z.
Because this is like the Liam Neeson character from Taken, right?
Right.
Same thing.
It wasn't that serious.
Okay. I remember I was at a Giants game. The Cowboys had played the Giants, and I'm in the tunnel, that stadium, and I'm in the tunnel, and I knew this person was at the game, and she's standing right across from me, and I am totally in love. And and I'm drawing a blank on the name. It's the woman from Law and Order SVU.
Really in love, huh?
I'm drawing a blank. Candy, help me out. Who's the actress from Law and Order SVU? You know what I'm talking about? Mariska Guy. There we go. Mariska Hargitay. And everybody's in love with Mariska Hargitay. Everybody. And she's standing right there. I'm like, oh. And a friend of mine who works for CBS 11 here in town, already got a picture with her. And normally I don't do that, but I'm like, ooh, I want to do this. I really want to do this. I really want to do this. And it is one of my great regrets in life. And I have so many of them. I did not do it.
Yeah.
So the next time, Nick, make sure you get the picture taken with Jay-Z. Okay, Cowboys are back in the win column. Here's the terrifying part. They have 6 remaining games. Thursday, they play the 2-9 Giants.
Yep.
The week after that, they play the 4-7 Bengals. Then they go at Carolina to play the 3-8 Panthers. Then they go home to play the 5-6 Buccaneers. Then they have 2 games remaining after that, the 9-2 Eagles and the 7-5 Washington whatevers. You and I texted each other about this. They won, and they're starting to look better. Should we fall for it?
No, we shouldn't.
No.
I'm not there. I'm not calling this game a fluke by any means. The win on Sunday, because they played well, especially defensively, up until the last 5 minutes, and then it just kind of flipped on its head, and chaos went about.
But Nick, that was really only when that was a big play. But when you say the last 5 minutes, I'm thinking it was one play.
Yeah, well, up until the last 5 minutes of the game, the Cowboys defense had given up 220 total yards.
That's pretty good.
In those last 5 minutes, they gave up 192. Not a good trend. But I don't see how they can keep it going, honestly, with the lack of sustained drives offensively. You look at the 34 points, 14 of them were scored on touchdown or kickoff returns. It's not realistic to think that this offense can remain in games and beat multiple opponents down these last 6 games.
So of those last 6, and you and I talked about this here on Cowboys Overtime before, that they were going to get some wins just because that's what happens.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, given their history against Washington, I can't really say I'm shocked that they did go on the road and win that game, just because for some reason, they have Washington's number. Now, Washington had been horrible for a long time, but Dallas consistently has had their number really since Dan Snyder bought the team back in 98, rather. So when we look at these games coming up, the Giants have quit. Bengals, Panthers, but they're not. I don't think they're going to beat the Panthers. Bucks, Eagles, Washington. How many wins in those 6 games do you realistically think the Cowboys can get?
I think they get 1. I think it's going to be Washington at the end.
You don't think they're going to beat the Giants on Thursday?
Yeah, I don't think so. And I think we're going to get to that here in a bit, right? We're going to talk
about
yeah. And we'll get to that in a bit. But I think they get Washington at the end, and it saves.
And that's it.
Yep.
I think they're going to get 2. Cincinnati is a wild card because that team's got a lot of quit in them. Carolina, Bryce Young is getting better.
Yes.
They're not beating unless Baker Mayfield gets hurt. They're not beating the Bucks. They're certainly not beating the Eagles. Washington, I could see that happen again. Okay, we have more to talk about here on Cowboys Overtime, but first, let's hear from our good friends at Window Nation.
Window Nation, the star of window replacement and proud partner of the Dallas Cowboys, can help you fill the house this season with savings. Buy 2 windows, get 2 free, and make no interest payments for 60 months, 5 full years. Fill your house for a customized authentic Dallas Cowboys jersey while supplies last. You could even help fill the Cowboys house and win tickets to a game. Visit windownation.com/Cowboys now for details. Call 866-95-NATION. Window Nation, proud partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
Thank you very much, Window Nation, back here on StarTelegram.com for Cowboys Overtime. I am Mac Engel, columnist, Kansas alum, probably the finest 5-6 football team in the nation.
That's a fact. That is a true fact.
They should be top 25. Legit, they should be top 25. They're not, but you can't tell me right now that they're not better than Indiana. He's Nick Harris. He was at Washington covering the Cowboys' franchise-altering win against the Commanders. Okay, you teed it up. It's a good tease, by the way. I think there are reasons for optimism, legitimately. So before you get into why this team is only going to win 1 game of the remaining 6, let's discuss legitimately a few things that have happened in these last few weeks that you would say for 2025 are reasons to think, okay, there's something there.
Yeah, I would like to point at DeMarvion Overshown and Jordan Lewis to start this off. 2 defenders.
Jordan Lewis, okay.
Yeah, 2 defenders that I think have played better than pretty much everyone else on the defense that has been healthy throughout the year. Micah Parsons off to the side for this conversation. Yeah. But you look at Jordan Lewis, what he's been able to do in the slot. He's been able to handle some really talented receivers out of the slot, whether you look at a Devontae Smith or a Tank Dell, or in this game against a guy like Terry McLaurin until that last 86-yard score. I think he's a guy you bring back. I think he's a guy you bring back for a couple of years. If they don't, I understand it. You would rather be a year early on a guy than a year late on a guy as far as getting rid of him. So I could understand that thought process. But I think he's a guy you would want to bring back for the secondary. DeMarvion Overshown, he's a guy you can build around on that defense. You can send him as a situational blitzer. We've seen Mike Zimmer use him in that double mug linebacker look multiple times, and it'll allow him to just run free at the quarterback or drop back into coverage, and it really confuses young quarterbacks, and I think they're going to have success doing that against either Tommy DeVito or Drew Lock on Thursday. But I think you look at those 2 guys as guys you can build around with your defense. Obviously, Micah Parsons as well. DeRon Bland is back in the picture. DeMarcus Lawrence is getting closer to being back in the picture. I think defensively, they'll have all their pieces together and will be able to play about 3 or 4 complete games finally with all 11 healthy. Now, that being said, on the
offense, does that include Trayvon Diggs? Trayvon missed the game on Sunday in Washington. Will he be a go Thursday?
He's on track as of right now. I say on track because Brandon Cooks was on track last week until he experienced some soreness on Friday. They had packages ready for him in the offense against Washington. They were ready for him to be activated. He experienced some soreness and an issue with that knee on Friday, and they went ahead and shut him down for the weekend. So I say on track with Trayvon Diggs just because on track could be off track by Wednesday.
What about Luke Schoon? Well, the picture of it there was Mozzie Smith, who he did nothing as a rookie. And he's had moments this season that aren't great. But there were moments and certainly against the Giants a few weeks ago, when the last time that they won in more than a month, he was great. And there were a lot of moments against Washington. You noticed him for the right reasons. You and I have been kind of on the same page about it. What do you think about Mozzie Smith?
Yeah, is this a guy that only shows up for divisional opponents? And if so, is that worth keeping around?
Right.
And maybe this is just a product of him having a familiar opponent on the other side of the offensive line. And in this case, it was not only a divisional opponent, but it was a center that he battled with in practice every day last year as a rookie in Tyler Biadasz. And he had some wins. And I think we're all on the same page when it comes to Biadasz, being very middle of the road as far as centers go in the NFL. So am I surprised that Mozzie Smith found success there? No. Is it something you can build on? Yeah, I think so. If you had asked
You're not buying it, are you? You don't sound like you're buying this.
I'm not buying it for Mozzie Smith specifically. I think
How about Luke Schoonmaker? Luke Schoonmaker was a guy you and I buried because they weren't even putting him on the field. And now in the last 2 games, he's seen a lot of action. He had a nice touchdown catch from Cooper Rush against Washington on Sunday. They are desperate for tight ends. They are. I can't ever remember covering a Cowboys team in 20 plus years where they are this thin at tight end. Will that give him a shot at being here next season?
I think it was about 4 weeks ago. I had somebody in the building tell me that Hunter Lipke is the best tight end, or the second best tight end on this roster, and that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing at all. So I think Luke Schoonmaker getting this opportunity shows that maybe he's worth keeping around, at least for a training camp opportunity next year to potentially make the roster. He's just a guy you have to get more involved in the receiving game. Going back to the Michigan TCU playoff game a couple of years ago, Schoonmaker was active in that game. And then you look back as far as how much he's been involved in the passing game over his first 2 seasons in the league, hasn't really been there. I would like to see that used a little bit more. Is he this point of attack blocker that they expected when they drafted him? He's not. Absolutely not. And I think that's where the disappointment factors in. But can you get him involved in the receiving game and try to find some success out of that? I think you can.
That's the part that mystified me when I saw that they picked him. It wasn't that they picked him. And it's not like he might be a good fit on an NFL team. Half the challenge is making sure that the guy you have fits what you want to do. It's one of the developments in this offseason, going from a Dan Quinn defense to a Mike Zimmer defense, that too many people missed. They have different preferences. And the defense that the Cowboys ran under Quinn was built for defenses that he liked. And all you have to go do is go back and look at the defenses that he had in Seattle and the ones that he had in Atlanta, built around faster guys. Well, anybody familiar with Mike Zimmer at all knows that he likes power, big, strong guys. Well, that wasn't a match with this personnel, and you hit it on what you wrote the other day. You and I texted about it. Defensively, they are figuring some things out, and that's why I thought they might be able to squeak in a couple of wins here, is that there seem to be guys now in positions where they can succeed and do something. And certainly on the offensive side, Schoonmaker has that look to me, because I still didn't understand it why they picked him. Like, this guy's not a blocker. He's a receiver. And if you split him out, he can be a matchup challenge, potentially for linebackers or even safeties or corners, if that's who they put him on. And he can do it. The question is, are they going to give him enough opportunities to really do anything significant? And to me, I still can't figure that out. I don't know if they're doing this because they think he can do something, Nick, or they're doing it because they're like, we got nothing else.
Yeah, I think it's more of a product of the latter, that they have nothing else. And it just kind of worked for him on that 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 8, whatever it was, from the 22-yard line, where he was able to haul in a touchdown reception. You talk about this defense, and like you said, we've talked about it, this defense starting to put it together. I just don't think they're going to have an offense to support them over the course of these next 6 games. I'm not buying that this offense is starting to figure things out right now.
Neither am I. And, you and I talked about, reasons to be optimistic. The only reason I think they'll beat the Giants is because I think there are different stratas of bad teams in the NFL. And the Giants are one of those teams that has quit. Yeah. They've quit on the field, and they quit in the front office with the idea that everything now is about 2025. Whereas the Cowboys, because Mike McCarthy said it, Jerry Jones is on board with it, we're not tanking. We want to win games. For whatever reason, that's what we're doing. We're trying to win games. And that's why I think they'll beat the Giants. Why don't you think they'll beat the Giants?
Desperation is a crazy thing, Mac. And this New York Giants team, I think, has more desperation in this game specifically than they've had all season. They will either be starting Tommy DeVito or Drew Lock at quarterback. Tommy DeVito's dealing with a forearm injury this week, so he's questionable going into the week. So you have a desperate quarterback who's trying to prove that he's worthy of being a starter in this league. Tommy DeVito getting a second opportunity. Drew Lock getting the first opportunity, I believe, since he had an opportunity in Seattle. You have a head coach who is staring down the barrel of a 10-day break before the team's next game. And if they lose, there's a very good chance he's not in that building come Monday. You have an offense.
Who's on this? Well, wait, hang on. Who's on the sideline? It is amazing to me that the Giants and the Jets share the same building, same stadium, and they are equally as inept right now. I thought the Jets were the gold standard. The Jets make the Bengals look like the Lions right now.
Yeah.
In terms of front office moves. But if you fire the Giants head coach, Brian Daboll, Okay, who's the guy on the sideline that you're really thinking about naming the head coach? Because if not, I don't know what you're doing it for.
Yeah, and we've seen that throughout some teams in the past. With the Jets, there's no way that they're looking at their guy as a potential future head coach. Why did they dip on Saleh that early in the season? That's beyond my. I can't imagine why anyone would want to do that. I don't understand why the front office want to do that. I could see New York making the very same decision, just with all of the noise that's coming out of that locker room right now. Malik Neighbors saying that it's a soft team, that they're not looking his way from play calling. Daboll had to have a conversation with Malik Neighbors after those comments to the media. You're starting to see that team really kind of fall apart from that perspective. I think, but the desperation isn't the only thing, because desperation doesn't win you games. I'm looking at Tyrone Tracy, their starting running back, as a guy who could potentially wreck this game. Whenever the Cowboys played the Giants last in Week 4, it was Devin Singletary that was the starter. The Giants were only able to put together 26 rushing yards in that game after the Cowboys had given up 557 in their first 3 games.
That's right.
So the very next week, they turned to the rookie and Tyrone Tracy, rookie out of Purdue. He was a wide receiver at Purdue for 2 or 3 years, and then got an opportunity to be the starting running back in his final season in the Big Ten and exploded. And he was worthy enough of a day 3 draft pick and now worthy enough to be a starter in the NFL. Since then, he has rushed for 588 yards over 7 games, and he has jumped the Giants from 30th in total rushing all the way up to 19th. This is still a Cowboys rush defense that is struggling at the end of the day. Eric Kendricks, it's going to be close for him not to go on Thursday. If he cannot go, then that's going to be another run support hole that you have in that second level. I think Tyrone Tracy runs for over 100, and I think the Giants win this game. I do.
Even if Eric Kendricks can go, what are the percentages that he lasts all 4 quarters?
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing. I mean, he was an injury-prone guy near the end, and the Cowboys took a flyer on him because Mike Zimmer liked him, and it's played out the way I think most people thought, which was he's okay, but he's older and he gets hurt. Okay, last thing we have to talk about. Slate of exciting final regular season college games coming up this weekend throughout the state. TCU goes to Cincinnati in an effort to improve its regular season record to 8-4, and they have certainly repaired what was on path to be a terrible third year under Sonny Dykes. Baylor hosts Kansas right now, by far and away the hottest team in the Big 12, in Baylor's attempt to prevent Kansas from becoming bowl eligible. However, the biggest game maybe in the history of college football regular season games and NFL regular season games, certainly by a price for a ticket, is Texas playing Texas A&M.
Yep.
Texas plays Texas A&M on Saturday night at Kyle Field, 7:30. It's the first time these teams have played since 2011. Texas is a 6-point favorite.
Wow.
I know. The winner goes to the SEC championship game, and I would say the winner has a decent chance on making the college football invitational, the 12-team bracket. In my mind, I have written about this. A&M didn't want any part of Texas in the SEC. A&M went to the SEC to get away from Texas, and now this is the most expensive regular season ticket in the history of college football or the NFL. The average ticket price, $1,000. A&M has lost 2 of its last 3 and right now is spiraling towards yet another forgettable 8-5 style finish, because if they lose on Saturday night, you know they're going to check out before whatever bowl game that they get relegated to, assuming they don't make the playoff. They're a 6-point underdog. For A&M, this game is everything. A&M has never been to an SEC conference championship game. In its first season in the SEC, Texas can make it. That game against Auburn on Saturday night was classic A&M. They should win it because they're at home, and I got a bad feeling Steve Sarkisian, Quinn Ewers, and everybody else from UT is going to go into Kyle Field and continue their ownership of the Aggies. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this game falls in the hands of one person, and I think it's Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers has not dealt well with pressure over the course of his time in Texas.
That Alabama game last year in Tuscaloosa, he was pretty good.
I'll give you that one. I'll give you that
Okay.
one. 100%. I'll give you that one. He dealt well with the pressure in that game. Made some big time throws. I will give you that one. But I look at instances where they've needed Quinn to show up, especially in the second half of games. We can go back to the first year as a starter. The crumple against Oklahoma State a couple of years ago in Stillwater. He's had moments against TCU whenever they had TCU at home.
It was terrible that game.
They couldn't drive down the field for anything. That was, I believe, it was the first top 5 opponent they had faced at home in a while. I look at this game.
How about the Washington game in the playoff?
Yeah, absolutely. Even though the running backs fumbled a million times in that game, Quinn Ewers could have had them in a position to win. Despite all of that.
The final throw. If the final throw's got some air under it, they tie the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I look at this situation where you're going to know in the first 2 drives that if Texas has a chance of winning that game. Because if Quinn Ewers comes out and he's trying to escape the pocket a little bit quicker than he should be, or throwing errant passes, this is going to be a situation where I think A&M takes control. They use that home crowd, and they use the pressure against Quinn Ewers. But if he comes out slinging it, has a great first half, then I think Texas ends up winning this game. Texas has proven that no lead is safe with them, especially in second halves of games. It's been a little bit eerie for Longhorn fans, but I do believe that if they can take control in the first half of this game, that they win.
Which quarterback do you trust more? They've gone with Marcel Reed, has looked good at times. He's running an offense that Colin Klein, the A&M offensive coordinator, prefers, which is why they're going with him. But as a thrower, he's a little erratic. Now, he's a young guy, and certainly Ewers has a lot more experience. So between those 2 guys, because I know you just give me a whole bunch of reasons not to trust Quinn. Who do you trust?
I think when it comes to taking care of the ball, I trust Quinn a little bit more. I think Marcel Reed has a little bit of turnover proneness, if that's a word, to him. But when it comes to making plays, being athletic, getting guys in position to make some big plays around the offense, I like Marcel Reed a little bit more. I think, Quinn Ewers, in my perspective, has taken a complete 180 as far as my projection of him and what I think he could be in the future, whether that be continuing with Texas or going on to the NFL. I think he's a very limited guy when it comes to how he deals with pressure, how he deals with injuries. He's proven to be injury prone. He's not 100% going to be ready for this game. He's battling some things that Steve Sarkisian's talked about this week. So I think at the end of the day, you have an athletic presence in Marcel Reed that could take over this game. I don't think Quinn Ewers is a takeover type of player. I haven't seen that from him yet.
I think this is kind of his make or break game. Certainly, so much was expected out of this kid when he was at Carroll, and he is your classic new age quarterback. He has been groomed for this. NIL money, goes to Ohio State, doesn't get the starting job for whatever reason, goes down to Texas. Now he's got an incredibly unique situation with Arch Manning behind him, only because Arch's situation and his family, he's like, yeah, go ahead. You be the starter, and I'll overtake next year. This has been predetermined for years. And if Quinn's going to be what he wants to be, he has to outplay the other guy on Saturday night. I'm betting on first of all, I would never bet on the game because I might as well just burn $5. I'm taking Texas for one reason. There is nothing in A&M's history or tradition that says it's going to win this game, even if it should. Even if it's going to have 103,000 people at that place, that would be a drunken bar fight waiting to happen. Nothing in this game says Texas will do anything other than beat A&M, because it always does. Who's your pick?
Yeah, I'm taking Texas as well. I don't know about covering that spread, but I think they will.
No way. No way. All right, that's Texas A&M versus Texas on Saturday night. Before that, we had the Cowboys playing the Giants on Thanksgiving Day. A terrible game, and one that Nick thinks the Cowboys are going to blow. For all your Cowboys coverage needs, be sure to check us out on StarTelegram.com. Have a great Thanksgiving, everybody. Thank you, Window Nation. We will see you next week.